Hello, class. This is Professor Zadevsky, and we're talking about editorial illustration. And this is right on our screen right now is Join or Die by Benjamin Franklin, who was a founding father but also a newspaperman and the creator of what is thought to be the first political cartoon in the United States. Well, it wasn't even the United States back then. It was still the colonies. And this is 1754, and it's Join or Die. He's talking to the colonies to stand tough together, and united we stand, divided we fall, right? Here we are, the original thought. Join or die, Ben Franklin. From there, I'm going to jump to roughly 120 years later, and we have Thomas Nast, who he's talking here to the folks in New York City, about how corrupt their mayor is and his cronies. And he's got them depicted as vultures picking the bones of the law and justice and the treasury and New York citizens themselves. Here they are getting picked over by the vultures. However, Nast is telling us that the vultures don't have much time because powers that be are going to be crushing them soon. So I don't know if they were under investigation at the time, but Nast is hopefully showing that the lightning's going to strike them dead. So Thomas Nast, however, he's a granddaddy of American illustration, and here he is again, but this time out of the editorial illustration realm and into nostalgia. And he's one of the first to depict Santa as we know him, jolly old elf. And here he is with mistletoe and one of the new inventions at the time, which was Alexander Graham Bell's telephone held up to his ear. And Santa's talking to, we assume, a little child somewhere. And it's down here, it says, "Hello, little one." So I guess he's talking to somebody over the phone, a little kid. Thomas Nast. From Thomas Nast, I'm going to jump over to Belgium in World War I, and here we have Louis Raymakers, who was world-renowned for his illustrations that depicted the horrors of the German occupation of Belgium and France and places like Antwerp. He was basically had a price on his head by the Germans. So he worked in secret as much as he could, and he got his illustrations out to other publishers that were outside of the occupied zones, and he eventually made his way to England. But here he is talking about the Kaiser, who was the leader of Germany at the time, and how he's partnered with who I assume is Mars here on the left, or War, as he's better known, and pestilence on the right. Pestilence and famine, often depicted as a cloaked figure like this. And there, obviously, he's got blood on his hands down here. So this is definitely editorial cartooning. It is political cartooning, and it is also what is known as propaganda. Now, we may agree that the Kaiser was a bad guy. However, this is propaganda for Raymaker's side of the fight. Likewise, there were German illustrators that were saying the nasty things about the French and nasty things about the English and nasty things about the Americans. So depending who wins the war basically dictates whether it was propaganda, I guess, or bad propaganda. So, but Raymakers just had some lovely line, and his work is exclusively black and white and most likely executed in lithograph, which is a process of etching done with crayon. From Raymakers, I'm going to jump another 40 years or so, and here we have Boris Artzybasheff, and he is a Russian immigrant who lived in, I believe, New York, and did a lot of work for Newsweek and Time magazine, and all the big outlets. However, here he's depicting the Nazi flag as a viper. Looks like it's a rattlesnake. and the twisted cross, and down below we see piles of bodies. So we know right where Boris stood on this issue and who the Nazis were. Boris is known for doing some fancy, crazy work depicting human traits in everyday objects. And here we see a foundry scene with pouring steel into the furnace or wherever, forgery or whatever. Excuse me, not forgery, but forging steel. And we see these wonderful faces that he's created and very human-like stances of some everyday tools. But Boris, he did both what would be industrial illustrations. He did work that did very similar things with automobiles, airplanes. He was used in a lot of ad campaigns. So advertising was also an outlet for him. However, the editorial illustration was one of these things that he was also brilliant at. Let's jump into the 1970s real quick, and we'll see. There's Marshall Arisman and one of his illustrations. Marshall still teaches in New York, I believe at the School of Visual Arts. In this piece that we're looking at here has to do with Marshall's take on gun control in the 1970s. 1970s in New York were very, very rough. There's a lot of murder, high murder rate. A lot of folks were not happy with the way it was run. And Marshall was one of those folks who thought the gun violence was just a little too much. So he did a whole series of these pieces. And then Time magazine saw them and actually used one of them on their cover. And that's when Marshall's career pretty much took off and was in the limelight. Just one magazine cover and everybody wants you. So there he is, Marshall Arisman, still teaching and still painting in New York. Another 10 or 15 years later, and we have our friend, well, she's my friend, but Zina Saunders, who's also in New York. She teaches at the University of Hartford Master's program right now, and I believe she lectures throughout the United States. I believe she's got quite a schedule besides painting. And this is a digital illustration. She's actually working within Photoshop, which is what I have up here. If you see, this is Photoshop. And Zina is actually painting within Photoshop and creating these illustrations. And they look like old school gouache paintings or watercolor. But she's able to do some really fantastic work that would fool anyone. This was from the last election cycle with John McCain and Barack Obama, and Zina believes that McCain is, telling ghost stories around a campfire and scaring people about Barack. So, likewise, Zina is also working in this current election cycle, and she's got a piece out there about the Romneys. Here we have the Romneys as wind-up dolls. It's a real simple illustration as far as the idea goes. One wind-up doll winding the other one, but it says a lot with a little. And again, this is also digital. It's just beautifully done and executed. And like I said, Zina is turning these around. She'll get the idea at 3 a.m. in the morning. She hardly ever sleeps. She'll be up at 3, and she'll have it at the editor's desk in their email inbox by 9 a.m. when they roll in. She's just prolific, quick, bright, and she loves doing it. You can tell that she loves doing her work. As far as illustration itself, a lot of these preliminaries come from sketches, and I encourage you to sketch and sketch often. I have a major requirement for this class, which is 3 pages per week within your sketchbook, and this is a sketch page that I did from the television last election cycle in 2008, and it's John McCain. He was actually within the debate talking to the crowd. And this was a posture that he constantly went back to. And I just started drawing him in that posture and picked it up and ran with it. So could I use this in an illustration? Yes, I could. I could say, put something silly in his hand if it besides the microphone, who knows what. However, it could be the basis of a larger illustration. But if anything, it trained me to understand who John McCain was and what his mannerisms were. Likewise, I have a piece here that I drew from the television. This is Mark Warner, who is I believe, a senator from Virginia. And he's got a real boyish looking face. Threw some freckles in there on his cheeks, if you see those. I'm not sure if he actually has freckles, but I remember at the time when I was drawing it, it just lended itself to it. So, it's goofy. I mean, his face does not necessarily have this funny profile and sweep. I've exaggerated a lot, but that's what editorial cartooning is about, is to create a caricature of the person. So here's Senator Warner, and it's not necessarily one of his better days, but it's my take on him as he talked on the television. I think he was on a half-hour interview show, and he was basically my model for half an hour, if you think about it. Had I had digital video recording capability, I could have freeze-framed this and drawn from an actual freeze frame on the TV. If you have that capability, that would be great. Likewise, maybe even like finding a YouTube of a lecture that a person might be giving. You might be able to freeze frame a YouTube screen. Whatever it takes. Learn who your subjects are and practice. So, let me, I've got a little lecture here as far as what editorial illustration is. It's using current events or social issues to drive the illustration. So this piece on the left was done during the Bill Clinton era, and it's Janet Reno, who was the Secretary of State at the time, giving Elian Gonzalez, a little kid from Cuba, a inner tube and his exit visa, and basically saying to him, go float back to Cuba. So it was a current event, and that's what this is about. It's often preachy. Editorial illustration is actually often preachy, but if not actual propaganda, since it's derived from the illustrator's point of view. Not necessarily always the illustrator's point of view, but oftentimes the editorial view of the venue that you're showing in. So if you're in a liberal newspaper, you're going to be doing things that are, social value, the little guy sort of point of view. If you're in a conservative illustration venue, then you'll be doing things that are, pro-government, social issues that are pro-conservatives. If you're in the communist newspaper, it's going to be pro-communist. So that'll be your viewpoint, and that's the viewpoint that you're going to be pushing. The not digital illustration, but editorial illustration is pencil, pen, paint, or digital. It can be any of these things. It does not necessarily have to be one or the other to be editorial illustration. And depending on the venue's capabilities. Now, what does that mean? Well, if I'm working in a newspaper, it's most likely only going to be able to print and reproduce line work or black and white. So why would I work in color? It would make no sense. However, if they have an online venue where they have the capability to show my work in color, then yes, I will create this in color. And I'll just make sure that it translates well into black and white. So also, if you're able to go on the web or if you have a venue such as Time Magazine or Newsweek, yes, color, for color artwork is encouraged. Number 4, editorial illustration is rarely afforded a second life of becoming gallery art, since its subjects are fleeting interest. Nobody wants to hang an illustration of Janet Reno giving a little kid an inner tube in their living room. I mean, it makes no sense. It has no value as artwork. It's not something that you really want to hang up unless you were a lawyer, immigration lawyer, if you were in the administration at the time or against the administration at the time, and it had some special value to you. Generally, editorial illustration is one-time use only, and once that news story ends, that's it. You'll never see it again. It won't come out of the drawer. And number 5, it's demanding and it's low paying. Editorial illustration, a lot of people want to do it. A lot of people are good at it. And a lot of people are fighting over just a few bones. So the prices stay low, and they expect the world. They expect you to turn around in under a day. I told you about Zina Saunders. She is unique. However, she is first to publish. So if you can compete with that, then yes, editorial illustration is for you. You're looking at a place that, as far as editorial illustration goes, that has a lot of satisfaction to it, because you're able to get your opinion out there. You're able to build consensus with your illustration. You're able to divide with your illustration. If someone's on the other side of the aisle, man, you can make some real enemies with your illustration. Thomas Nast, let me pop him back up. Let's find his stuff real quick. Tammany Hall. This mayor here, Tammany, actually gave Nast an option to go to Europe to study painting. In other words, he was willing to get him out of town on his dollar to send him to Europe in the 1870s. So, you can make enemies with your illustration. So be careful what you say. But that's it. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy this week and your editorial illustration, and I look forward to seeing what you do. Thanks.